Well, this is going to be exciting because I have a fellow Montrealer um, coming from Beirut, his home basically, but went to my alma mater, one of my alma maters in Montreal. So Imad, super welcome. So happy to have you here. Welcome.
Very excited to be here, especially that you're also a fellow Concordian.
I'm a Concordian. I've been called worse than a Concordian. And shout out to Jose Peranian for the introduction. It wasn't funny. He's a comedian. It wasn't funny that he introduced us. It was just good that he introduced us. So you've done a lot of great things. Let's start with if you can just briefly introduce yourself. You are coming from Beirut right now. I want to share how your family's doing with everything and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Imad, or as we say in Arabic, to get yourself familiar with it, Imad Abu Khalil. So that's how we pronounce it in Arabic. My parents have lived, and myself, we've lived in Beirut with my siblings all our life, and until 2008, when I moved to Concordia, to Montreal to study my telecommunication engineering master's at Concordia. So I used to be an engineer, and some people called me the guy who went from engineering telecom systems into engineering lives. Past 2010, I discovered coaching and personal development, and that has been my journey for the last around 10 years. So came back to Lebanon in 2015 and been working here, doing my trainings and my coaching. In 2018, I got the name of #1 life coach influencer on social media because of the value I give through my podcast, through my videos, through my posts, and I'm happy to be here.
No, that's fantastic. And with everything going on Middle East-wise, how's your family doing? How are you doing?
Health-wise, we're doing good. Financial-wise, we're doing good as well. Although, I don't know if you guys would know that the banks have arrested our money, but we're managing, thank God. So, it's just, this year has been one of the most best teachers. I think it's been one of the best teachers, and it shows you the importance of gratitude for what you already have while working slowly for what you want to achieve later on. So it's been a year of gratitude and connection and going inward, because when you can't go outward because of a COVID, you must go inward.
Yeah, this reminds me, I say this sometimes with some of my guests, it reminds me of when Jay Leno said with Robin Williams, and Jose would appreciate this as a comedian, he said with Robin Williams, all he had to do was say, "Hi, Robin," and then he just took it from there, and he didn't need to moderate or ask questions or anything. So I have a feeling you could do that too. But it's a good segue there, because I agree 100%. There's always a silver lining for some, and there's always a reason for everything, but without going too much into what we're going to go into, just tell me, why do you do what you do?
Listen, I went to Canada just to do my master's in telecommunication engineering as an international student. So the challenges there, being alone there, my family was still in Beirut, the expensive cost of the tuition fees, all of these challenges, because I wanted to do my telecom engineering master's. However, while doing it and working a bit in engineering, something about me wasn't happy. I was good doing what I'm doing. I chose engineering. It wasn't the choice of my parents. No one forced me. I chose the master's, yet I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't satisfied. And life slapped on the face. And it's probably because you needed to wake up. So meanwhile, when you go as an international student, you're not allowed to work because you don't have a postgraduate work permit, but you're allowed to work on campus for like 20 hours per week. And within that, I was able to do some side jobs at places that I've never imagined myself to be working there. However, that slap in the face was the awakening I needed. And along my path, I met people and mentors and teachers and personal development and coaches in times that I never knew personal development existed or life coaching existed. And when I experienced it by going to a life coach to figure out what I want, I loved the experience. And I wanted to be that person to help people do it. But you might think this is just an accident or coincidence. But let me tell you, whether you're religious or not, and I'm not that religious, there might be a calling for every person, because all my friends from school would tell me, you were always that person. Like, you were always that person that would just not give advice, but you were there to listen to us, and you had the wisdom to actually help us figure an answer. I'm like, I really did this? I'm not even aware I did it intentionally. So it's when you take your career to the calling level, it's when you find yourself within that you do this transformation that I've done. And that's simply my why. So part of my why now is triple I as in Imad, 2033. And what does that mean? That means my purpose now is to become an internationally inspirational influencer by 2033. So I want that influence to be international, to try to touch every person, every human, every organization that I could from now till 2033.
Wow. Well, in a lot of ways, you're a futurist because you've already gone into the next question. But that's amazing. And I think what happened there is probably a tribute to you being authentic to who you are, and people helping you see that. You've worked and have been engaged with corporate leaders. It seems for quite a while in a lot of ways in the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa, and Canada, obviously, and in coaching leaders. I'm sure all different kinds of leaders, different perspectives. It's taken decades for leaders to actually realize that caring about social and environmental impact is actually good for business. It's actually even great for attracting talent, especially now, because talented leaders want to work where they can certainly make money. They don't want to give that up, but they also want to have some purpose and make a difference in the world, like you're talking about. So you kind of went into this a little bit. So you were educated as an engineer. Now you're engineering life, is I think how you may have put it. You got the real international experience of living and working in Lebanon and Canada. We're by a lot of great Lebanese friends in Montreal because it was a great community. So tell us a little bit more about how you think all of that differentiated you as, if you will, one of the leaders who cares, and how you use that to coach and support the leaders you talk to in the corporate world.
So before talking about myself, let me tell you something that I've realized working with these leaders across cultures, across hierarchies, and across countries, because I also coached leaders from the MENA region and specifically from the UAE. And I've realized one thing that you're gonna fall in love with. The most successful leaders are leaders who care.
No way.
Yes, they genuinely care about the well-being of their people, of their employees. And this works also with politics, not only corporate. Like even with the politics, people love the leader who cares. So let's go back to the corporate and to the organizations. That's what I've seen all across. Whether working directly with the leader or coordinating directly with the leader to coach their employees. And my question was always like, in these times, like, how come you're like now in these times, I am booked for January in Lebanon to deliver trainings in Lebanon for employees. And I asked these leaders, I'm like, why are you, like, I want to know, why are you investing? Because the return on investment might take very long, and you might not have the time or the money, the budget to do it. Especially that our Lebanese lira is diluted up to like 6 to 7 times. And they said, because we care of the well-being of these humans.
Right.
That's to boil it down. And that's for me is it. Now, when it comes to me, I've learned something around 2011, because while transitioning into coaching, I was also discovering myself. So I didn't just go into coaching. I ventured into tutoring. Like, I had a tutoring company called Ace Tutoring. I also went into different things like fitness, like coaching, like different things to discover myself. And I started applying the concepts of emotional intelligence in 2011. Like, this is 9 years ago, before emotional intelligence was mainstream. And in the sense that when I was looking for teachers, I didn't care about the degrees. I cared about how much students would love them.
Right.
And the question is, Imad, how did you know this? Like, how did you figure this out, right? If you didn't have a business background, for example. Because I happened to be a teaching assistant at Concordia University for engineering. And I've realized that students are coming to my class from different classes. And I was new, like, why would students come to my class? My class happened to be electronics 2, which was one of the toughest and most challenging classes in engineering for 3rd and 4th year of engineering. And students said, because number one, the way you explain it, but number two, because of how you treat us. So without having a background of emotional intelligence, I started choosing teachers who care, teachers who have empathy, who care about their students. And research have proven over and over again, being empathetic, caring about your people, about your employees, as a game changer in terms of improving productivity, in terms of the well-being, in terms also of the indirect boosting of the sales and revenue. So yeah, that's for now.
Yeah, well, I guess you're going to have to be our poster child for leaders who care, or something like that. But you're right on. You know, I compare a lot of things to sports, and I think it relates to business. It relates to just life in general. And the coach that shows that he really stands up and cares for the player, the ROI on that player would be fantastic every single time, because he knows that the coach is behind him and cares. So, you speak about well-being and things. My grandparents, who were from Kiev and immigrated to Montreal in Canada, and they always used to say with their accent, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing, you know? And then they would see education as second, but the health was, and it wasn't a branding or a slogan, it was from experience for real. That is the most important thing. So technology is still speeding along like in the speed of light. You've got COVID. Hopefully we're getting to maybe the light of the end of the tunnel. We got the tipping point of equality, racial justice, people justice, etc., which was inevitable. And but Mother Nature said, hey, why not just pile it on at the same time? Good thing to do. To your points, do you see maybe because of the time that there is a little bit of a self-awakening as to what's important, you know, that we're thinking about, and how that's going to impact how we are at home, at work, in our community, etc.?
Yes, in terms of consciousness, in terms of awareness, there's definitely, because as I said, when you couldn't go out, a lot of people, what they did was going in. And how do I know this? Because my clients tell me all the time that they have witnessed an awakening. They have witnessed a closeness to their true self during the COVID time. Mm-hmm. Especially at the very beginnings when everything was on pause and we couldn't work, we couldn't do anything. And people were trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with my time? Right. There's no jobs, there's no business. What am I going to do with my time? Some were baking, dancing, reading, mating, whatever they were doing. But they were trying to figure out a way to spend their time and energy that they haven't done yet. And by attending to the problem, they raise their attention, because attention is attending to the problem in front of you. And that's what raises your consciousness. And by the way, when you face a danger, neurologically and physiologically, you have something called acute sense. So your vision focuses on the problem ahead, but by doing this, it raised your consciousness level. Now, taking this globally, I believe something will happen and leaders will have a challenge that's the next level. We all know about AI, which is artificial intelligence, and we know about EI, which is emotional intelligence. One of my specialty courses, by the way, which I deliver to train as a trainer. The future is HI, and that's human intelligence. But what does that mean? That means a new generation of robots and artificial intelligence that are able to feel and identify more and better the human feelings. And they will be part of the corporate structure. So you will have, let's say, a robot X who's the HR part of a team. And not only do you have to communicate with it as a leader, but you have to lead it and integrate it with the team and to teach and inspire the team to work together with the human intelligence of the robot, which understands AI and EI in the robot, and integrate that in one team, because this is the future. So leaders not only have to care, but they have to teach robots to care and to be more human and more empathetic.
Well, we do have drones that started walking dogs during the pandemic. So, I mean, there's a, and actually I have a client that has an amazing thing. It's a company called Cyrano. It's AI, and it actually delves and translates the meaning of the conversation between people to have people become more effective. So there is a lot of amazing stuff happening, and I think it'll just create more jobs, more different jobs for people, rather than just losing jobs, which happened in different eras along the way too. So I think you're right on the money. And you mentioned well-being. I'd like to know what your opinion is of, and what you hear from corporate leaders as to what role they should play as business leaders who care about the well-being of their talent. And there's financial well-being, there's physical well-being, and there's mental well-being, which include spiritual. And how do you see leaders thinking about not just, I care about it, but really doing something about it?
You can see that in terms of where the investments of the corporate is heading. So it's not only heading into R&D, research and development. It's not only heading into CSR, corporate social responsibility. It's also heading into although well-being of their employees, for example, in investing in mental health problems, in investing in the physical health, like gyms and fitness places. And you can see the shift as well. Like, for example, in Beirut, companies have, not all of them, not many of them have done this before, but a lot of companies in the last year, given the crisis, the financial crisis, the COVID, the revolution, and all of what's happening, have integrated on-house psychiatrists or psychologists, or therapists or coaches to work with their employees, and that didn't happen before. And if the companies in Lebanon are doing this, this gives you an indicator, because most of the companies in Lebanon didn't have this culture of investing in their employees for so many reasons. The culture isn't there, and there's more focus on the profit. And this has to be, used to be for more of prestigious companies. But now even the smaller SMEs are doing this, and that's a great indicator. Now, globally, business leaders and political leaders need to collaborate, because whatever you do sometimes as a corporate leader, as a business leader, if there's no political vision that supports that implementation, at the end of the day, it doesn't work effectively. Because if the direction of the political leader is going, for example, into more, let's say, pumping garbage in the ocean, but the business leader is more towards, saving the ocean and the SDGs, because I've worked with SDGs within the United Nations. So these different directions between the most powerful, influential leaders wouldn't get effective results, and that's something to be taken into consideration next level. And we've seen it through the COVID that political leaders needed the dependency. They were dependent on business leaders from one side, and because of the economic crisis, and health leaders and scientists from the other side to find solutions. So it's a multidisciplinary skill every leader needs to develop moving forward.
Yeah, it's a great point, and this is a longer discussion than this question, but we have an initiative that we've started called Business for Peace, and it's really it's not just about holding hands and singing Kumbaya, but it's about training, engagement, experiences continuum that goes all the way down to the employees and even their kids of economically being interdependent, not judging people. A lot of work on a program like Nonflict, which one of the founders is from the Middle East, that shows how conflict is not a bad thing, but just different ideas, how to make sure people know that you heard them, et cetera, a lot of different things like that. With what's going on right now, UAE and Bahrain, Israel, Abraham Accord, et cetera, do you see more business people open to engaging with each other because it's an important thing to do and it's good for business?
Definitely, this will happen in UAE, and it's already happening. The integration of what you just mentioned. There will be some resistance in other countries, Arab countries,
sure.
But UAE happens to be the hub of business and business leadership in the area. So either these countries and businesses will follow the pace of UAE, or they will just avoid it. But the focus now is on UAE, because whether I accept or I acknowledge every decision they made, without going into details, I personally respect the leadership of the UAE, and they have taken a country from like a desert. I like
dessert too, though. It's okay.
From a desert to like Mars, going to Mars, right? And this is what the Lebanese politicians failed to do. They actually took us back into the desert. So I believe in the leadership of the UAE. They've been doing great, empowering their people, empowering diversity, empowering businesses, and creating this freedom to nourish. And I've trained leaders in the UAE, and it's a beautiful mindset they have. It's very open. It reminds me of Toronto. When I went to Toronto, for some reason, I don't know why, It's the business mindset of creating opportunities and taking responsibility as leaders to do it. That's something beautiful.
Yeah, it is, and you know, and you can. It's shown that you can, again, care. It's not soft. It's not, you know, it's not any of that. You can care and make a difference and make money at the same time. There's no doubt about it. And from that can actually come peace between people at the same time as well. So great passion, great. I can see why you're you know, engineering life for a lot of good leaders, and keep making a difference, man. You truly are one of the leaders who care, and I appreciate you being on the series.
It's been a pleasure, Mark. Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon.
Let's do it.